Dumelang kaofela, welcome to another episode of Gogo Moyo TV, and of course I'm your host Kinna Gogo Moyo, and today we're going to be talking about Gobela life lessons. Last week we spoke about spiritual life lessons in general, but this time we're going to take it up a notch because we're going to speak about it on a more refined level for an elite group of people who not everyone gets to ascend to that level. And if you do, you're fortunate enough to know that it was Lakulitandile to take on a role of leadership, take on a role of teaching and of mentorship and of guidance. Is it really a gift, or does it also have an element of a curse? In this episode, you're going to find out just exactly the details and stories from my mates, my colleagues in the industry, about how they feel their Gobela life lessons are. Stay tuned. So on this episode, just before we get started, I'd like to remind you to subscribe as well as hit the bell button so that you can get notifications of when the next video drops. Thank you so much to the people that share my content. I do get to see the report back from YouTube about the interaction as well as the comments. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. You really matter to me, and you're the reason why I do all of this, right? So I'm going to share with you guys, I've been a Gobela for roughly 6 years now, out of my 15 years of being Isangoma, and I can tell you, I can take Uktwasa over and over again over being a Gobela, because wow, what a tricky position to be in. It's also one of the most sacred spaces you can ever be in, because it's a dawn from firstly Idlos Lako to the child that comes to initiate by you. It's such a dawn on your shoulders. It's like a donning, a crowning, a kingship, a knighting ceremony, if you will, because clearly there's something about you and your gift, your power, your influence, and how you navigate your spirituality, that they have entrusted you to teach the next group of people that come after you. The biggest lesson that I've learned, is you're going to be triggered. You're going to be triggered by being Igobela because, firstly, not everyone is raised from the same home, by the same parents, in the same community. Factors, all those things, all those demographics play a part in how you develop as a person. So, as Gobela, you are basically a hub of people who comes from all and different walks of life, and you are supposed to be somehow the initiator, the mother, the guardian, the teacher, the big sister or the younger sister. But it's actually a play on power, and power not even in a negative, oppressive way, but it's confusing even to the people that sometimes you initiate, because sometimes they can be older than you by physical age, but edlozini, you're obviously older, and mele bathwele umthetho weshoba, umthetho wendumba yakho, umthetho of your home. And sometimes, like myself, who still lives on my parents' piece of land, I have to remember that at different parts of the day, I play in a different role. I'm firstly my parents' daughter. I'm my children's mother. I am part of a community that's family. And then endumbeni, it's a different spectrum. Lapho ngibeka versus in all the other areas, there's a give and take, but I'm not the one in charge, right? Endumbeni, you have to remember to plan, prepare, know where you're going in the ship of initiation. And in that, I found that I got triggered so many times based on the fact that it was like libiza wonke umuntu ofanele angene endombeni yakho. You have no power over that. I could sit on social media, probably comment on everybody's post who's having dreams and tell them that Idlos Lab was actually directing them to my way. I can try use Muti to influence people to start dreaming of me more. I can do whatever I want to do. But the final say, eledlozi. Firstly, idlos lako, nidlos lami. Because those are the two, as much as we are also in a relationship, they are also in relationship. And they're the ones who are basically the main frame of everything. They grant and they decline at will. So by the time our initiation story begins, emadlozini, the communication has been sent forth. Then we start dreaming of each other, start having what we call as fate, tying into our different stories for you to eventually wind up endumbeni, whether it's a consultation and you're like, Mom, I've had a dream about this person, I've seen her ample amount of times and this is the role that she was playing, or whatever the scenario is, all of it combined, you end up coming into iphehlo, to initiate. And you are introduced to Gobela wako, who is also part human, part spirit, emoyen. And those two, if she hasn't married well within herself, seeps into you as the initiate, or you as the initiate triggers her unhealed wounds. And I don't think there's any person on the face of the planet that does not have wounds from growing up. But it's the work that we do. We spoke about shadow work in the previous video. And if you neglect that, trust me, ubugobela is not going to be an easy feat for you. In the path of becoming ugobela, I realized that I had a lot of issues that I hadn't worked on growing up. And those are the things that bothered me, that were still untold, things that I never shared. And they were showing up in ways that part of them were rejection. I felt like the way children behaved was rejecting me or my teachings, because of the stories in my past that showed hyper independence, being neglected, not even neglected like you're not fed, but emotionally or spiritually. You have no actual place or hub where you reconnect with that feeds into you and it becomes fulfilled. So any of those unfulfilled pockets of your life will show up in interactions with other people. And that's what I mean by abantwana bambedlozi triggered me so much, because I also realized I had to be reflective of myself. How do I conflict, resolve? How do I speak on issues? How do I communicate effectively that someone else gets to carry out the task or keep the learnings and absorb the learnings in such a way that tomorrow or 3 days from now, if I were to ask them on that particular conversation, they would feedback me, and in a positive way. I think also a big thing is sometimes we put ourselves, when we used to initiate, as part of the benchmark. It was the way mina bengakhona lesikhathini phehla. Whoa. That's not true. As I said, people come from different walks of life. We appreciate hard work differently. We appreciate being present differently. We appreciate attention differently. So if you are an absent Gobela, but you communicate now and again in such an effective way that that person is set for the week in terms of tasks or a ritual that they're supposed to follow, or steps or processes that they're supposed to do, that suffices for that one child. You could give out the same instruction to a different person and they'd be like, ma'am, I'm lost. I feel like you're not showing up for me. The same process doesn't work for everybody. And that's what I found as my biggest lesson as a Gobela. I also found that in the years that I was Gobela, I fell pregnant twice. And it meant that I was in an incubation phase because I was giving life. I was incubating a life myself. Meanwhile, Idlozi then sends children to come initiate while I'm pregnant. I'm going through my own physical difficulties, my own mental difficulties, relationship difficulties, because everything is an adjustment. How do you transition between your own personal struggles to now focusing and including this other group into your whole picture. So life doesn't stop, irrespective of whether it was Alcona or Maliko. Life doesn't stop. And can't and shouldn't stop, irrespective of what happens in your own life. So it's that balance, is that honoring the different relationships that you keep, the different goals that you've set for your own personal self, because we end up resentful of the work of being in servitude and showing up for other people. Because where did the time go? January, August, hang on, that's just a full year gone. I'm left with 3 months to figure out what happens next. So in all of that, I found that walking with the gift is much more important than standing beside it and almost seeming like you are in a dictatorship or anything like that. It's a community-based activity, Gobela, because you also need people in your team. Empandeni, Khanya. I know my mom handles the ladies in the kitchen. She knows to give them things or to show them where they are or to assist. If you can see, here's the refill bottle. Such things. Now imagine if my mom didn't believe in the work that I did. I would be in trouble. I'd be vulnerable because I'd also have to take care of that space. Ngapha ngisendumbeni. Ngapha I'm with the families. Ngapha mathasahlele endumbeni. Nabo Gobela na bafuna attention yami. So Gobela is a literal community-based activity. So you need to learn serious people skills, serious communication skills, and you have to also give up control in certain areas because you are part of something bigger than yourself. With that said, I'd like to play for you a few clips from a few of my friends who I revere and honor and respect in the fraternity of Ubungoma. They have a vast history. I'm sure most of you know who they are. Some have been featured before in different conversations. But this is what they had to say about their Gobela life lessons and their energy, their tone, their reflective points towards how much of Gobela takes over one's life. But something more interestingly, I want you to focus on how different conversations said by different people end up sounding so similar because gafana in all the different areas. Much like kututwasile when it's easy, and then you're part of that community, somehow you feel like things are not progressive enough, or I should be at a certain level at that time, or whatever you feel like is a lack for you. You jump ship, you go somewhere else, only to find that Idlozi will activate and deactivate as and when it wants to. Also, it depends on how we treat our work, ourselves, our vessels. Are we in a holy and sanctified lifestyle that assists, propels, and hubs our spirituality? So, yeah, enjoy. Up next is Utisetso Makubedu, Gogo Kude, and as per their profile, they're a consulting agency. Aisangoma, culture keeper and activist, travel as sacred liberation, founder of Ugudloza, indigenous ways of being and knowing consultancy, and their yoga teacher. This is what they had to say.
Thokoza baba. Kuphendula mbuto ukuthi how did I transition from kuba sangoma nenyanga to kuba ngobela? The journey for me was named while I was still in Twasa. In our Mbande, there's a process of divining and there being prophecies which are spoken over around what is your initiation, what is your initiation post ku lapha engulo, which is being of service to you, going to represent in terms of being of service to others, particularly in your practice. My Gogo Mkulu, along with the lady Umgoma Desayago Divina Guye, both gave me separate messages but speaking the same thing. See, in part of my work, I have been called to be a teacher. Coming from Inzala Banvuyam, my father, having been a political activist involved in the struggle, and a lot of his work being around community building, working with communities, building up capacity within those communities. It was named Wutsi. I particularly now, that call of his as he passed on at a young age would be passed on to me, and I would interpret it, and it would take the form of being a Gobela amongst other things, and also being called to spaces where I build communities. When I first received both those messages, I had a lot of resistance, and straight out was like, no, I don't see myself ever becoming a Gobela. This was in 2014. Fast forward then to a year later, what was meant to be the first group of my Matwasa then emerged, with one of them being Mvana Wasekai. They, as per protocol, baya konaga kokomkulu ogagubabi langkule kona. And that would continue then from 2015 up until 2018, where there were 3 twasas of mine in the preceding each year coming in to then go and buy go pedla gam kokomkulu. At the time, for me, there was a safety within that, and there was a lot of me still then leaning upon the supports of Gobela, Gogo, na kokomkulu. Things shifted for me when then in that very same year of 2019, I would then have to take on the work. And Imadloti made it very clear that I would have to do the initiation. This happening in 2019 came from the first group of twasas were 2 males, both of which I had been working with as umsebenzi wami of creating safe and just spaces in the city had looked like. Taking people to reconnect with nature, doing the spiritual hikes which I pioneered during that time. And there was a lot of people who came in and found themselves as being called to me to assist them with their ancestral work. That allowed for me to have a template to transition into, as meaning I would help people with Mvumagufa Yabo and what we'd call a pre-twasa program of firstly reconnecting Nesimbu, reconnecting with the land, and also getting to understand Inzabuwe Yabo, their family and their ancestry, where it is that they came from. My first group of twasas were what made it quite easy for me to transition, as we had a personal relationship. I had known the one for 2 years, the other for almost a year, and there'd been a lot of meeting each other as Batu. Also, with having then the holding of being home in Mpumalanga, that offered a lot of also support for me to call upon the community that was there. This is not to say that it wasn't difficult for me, because what it brought up was, in that first group of Twasas, I projected a lot of the type of Twasa I was, how I showed up the Gobela wami, and that then became the template or the standard that I held Matwasane Am to. And what I really struggled with in that transition was, in that expectant nature, there would constantly be then strong feelings around how each of the two Twasas were showing up organically, either as themselves or in their ancestries. And this would sometimes bring up the strict nature, which I then discovered within myself, this very purist side, and that called for me to actually start to look into myself, as I had always known myself to be this very liberal, open, accepting person. What the moving into the Gobela space really did for me was, it asked for me to start to build a deeper relationship with myself, to really also learn to not expect of me to be able to do any and everything, because I was hands-on involved kuyo yonke into, from kushayela kuya emuthini, the making of the regalia, every single process. I had this vice grip on wanting to really be in control, to be involved, to be the one that is there. And what I then found is that closed off my own time to connect with myself, with the things that I enjoyed doing, where I mentioned that I would do spiritual hikes Sunday, I would hold space for other people, but time being a limited resource, and the nature within which I transitioned into being a Gobela meant that so many of my passions faded away. It limited also my ability to connect with friends, with family, and with community within that way within which I was moving. And that first round brought a lot of awareness within it, to where then I needed to process.
Next up we have Kamo, holistic healer, industrial psychologist, HR, entrepreneur, speaker, author, Dr. Malaji, founder of Mashinkwane. And this is what her piece went like. Marcos, I think for me the biggest life lesson is, as a Gobela, the gift of self-awareness, the ability of to self-regulate. I say this because as Gobelas we barely self-introspect. The way in which our relationship with Twasas break has me asking, what if we are the problem? Not on a spiritual level, but physical level. Many Twasas claim to have left Ntwaso traumatized because of the treatment received. I think we can do better in communication, specifically on the how. The second life lesson is honor your calling, but not at the expense of your health and family. Set clear boundaries from the onset of what is tolerable and not, and how to address them should you find boundaries broken. Third one is have no expectations from Twasas. Do what you have to. Get paid for it, and in the process, those meant to be long-term allies, affiliates, will remain. Release those who voluntarily leave, even if their manner of leaving is unbearable. Number 4, invest in conflict resolution sessions. It is a need. Number 5, rest when you can. Burnout is an illness. In essence, emotional intelligence. And we have Mkhulu Lesedi, Mpande ya majoy, nkunkumezane njalo, khotso le Khanya ke matla.
Thokozani go lessons that I've learned. I've learned gore goba Gobela is not just being Gobela to bana ba hao bao ba tsetseng mo sedimong. Goba Gobela means you have to live your life in a certain way. You know, you have to live your life ka tsela e leng hore bana ba bang ba leng hore they find themselves in difficult situations le digobela tsa bone. They can approach you, they can seek advice from you. Goba Gobela means that lento iwan. Gobela e nngwe ha ka heta ngwana gagwe, Gobela ya ko Mpumalanga heta ngwana gagwe or wa ko KZN or wa ko Maputo, wherever. Ngwana o ha kopana le wena and then I find out gore le wena o Gobela, you are basically the same person o leng gore o mo hetile until you can prove otherwise. So o tsentse o itshware in such a way leng gore you are even a Gobela to a Gobela who doesn't know you. Angwana gage atla ko wena re Gobela ka so you don't just jump and say yeah e di Gobela o itse yo ba rata fela tšhelete tla ke go thuse. No o dula fatshe le ngwana wa mo tlhalosetsa o metsa understand boima ba Gobela and then wa mo thusa ngwana gore yene le Gobela gage ba kgone go reconcile. If that fails, then ngwana you can adopt the child and whatnot and whatever. I've learned gore bana ba badimo ba ba tlisang into your life, they are there for two reasons. It's either that child is going to teach you a lesson or that child is going to heal you. It's not a one-way street. It's not gore wena wa mo heala and then go fedile. No. Each of us are fetsa go thwasa, we only have 10% of what we actually need more life in. And then each individual or each interaction we have has like a 0.5% of what we need. And now we need each and every individual. Motho wa go tlisa botlhoko o go fa that 0.5%. Motho wa go tlisa monate o go fa that 0.5%. Motho a go betray o go fa that 0.5%. So that you can learn what does betrayal actually feel like? How did this betrayal make me feel? How did this betrayal affect my work? How did this betrayal affect my kids? Understand? Because when I did betrayal, ya fitlha le go baneng before if fitlha le go wena, or if fitlha go wena pedi you try and hide it if fitlha le go baneng. Understand? How did you find out about that betrayal? Ditoro tsa teng di ne le ditoro tse di yang. That way you learn gore next time a ditoro tse di tshwanang le tse o di bua, you learn gore I've been here before. Understand? So I've learned gore each and every interaction, a gona interaction e leng gore it's just an interaction. About 90% of banyana that I've had relations with, and not like a relationship or sex, whatever. I haven't even had sex with any of them, banyana bao. Just batho ba ke kopane le bone ke lo register go UJ ra kopana, we clicked, exchange numbers, we've been friends forever. People I went to crèche with, people I went to primary with. Kingaka ba botlhe. Understand? So it's like it's always been there and it's always aligned itself yone ine yemetse rona ba senama gore re align le yone it's always been there. So I've learned gore a gona motho o kopanang le ene ka phoso. I've learned how me and you met. We met because of an ancestral song, such a simple thing. Understand? And then look at where we are now. Understand? So gona motho o kopanang le ene ka phoso, a gona motho e leng gore o qabana le ene ka phoso, a gona motho e leng gore o decide go reconcile le ene ka phoso. Understand? I think the part we play is a very small part compared to the part Fate plays and the part Mudimo plays and the part Badimo play. Ours is a very small part. Ours is a human part. The human part etinehang, the human part efelampelo. You understand? Yeah, that's what I've learned, man. Especially Bana Babadimo, they are there to teach us lessons and they are there to heal us. You might not know what are they there to heal, but they are there to heal you. If an issue within yourself that you are refusing or failing to address, but will push you into addressing that. If a certain gift you are neglecting, let's say gift as profit, but if you neglect maybe go ithuta go shapa dikopo or whatever, ba tlo go tlisetsa ngwana e leng gore o tsegelwa ke badimo every single day, ba batla go kita. They're going to force you to listen, you know, and they're going to force you to address certain issues. If you have issues with your parents, they don't go about with the address. Ba tlo go tlisetsa ngwana o nang le di issues le batsadi ba gagwe. And then through helping this child address the issues, yes, there's a part of me that needs to be healed. Understand? If you have issues with your partner that you are avoiding, but only the same issues the partner has. Understand? If when as Gobela only issues you don't want to address, but Gobela only the same issues. And then what about difficult it's just there hanging. So that is what I've learned. That is what I've learned. We have power to make decisions, make choices. Gobela na le matla. Gobela ke motho na le matla. Gobela na le matla, o na le the power to destroy, o na le the power to give life. What you need to understand is that you have to pray for botlhale ba gore power e o e berekisang, otherwise that power will consume you and it will kill you. Literally it will kill you. Firstly it will kill you spiritually. After killing you spiritually, you will go to the grave because you are now becoming a useless image.
And then we have Kokwane Dumezulu Gobela, and she is one of our elders in Pandenyetsu, and this is what she had to say.
Gogo Moyo, ga ke kena mo baneng ba go ngala ba sepela, ke sa ba ira sepe. Ke kena ko ndumbeng manaka ka phahla ka begela sedimo, ka sia mathata ohle le mahloko ohle ko sedimong sa ka. And then bana ba tswafang for kundumbeni ba sa ire sepe. Gogo ke dula le bona fase ka ba hlalosetsa ge ba nhlula ka re bana le go hlola ba kwate. Family tsa bona ha di fihlile ke di tseya ka di beya fase ka ba hlalosetsa pele ga bona bana ba go tswafa. Gore ba tsebe ka usane ba ska yo penta ka re ba motho sa ba penta. And then ke ithutile go amogela, ka ithuta gore ke tie ke be strong ka ntho ngwe le ngwe ke kopanang le yona ka mo Gobeleng. ba bangwe ba re ho ngala ba ete ba ho bua hampe. Ke ithutile go amogela ka phahla sedimo sa ka ka se bolella gore ga e bane le ntlisetsa meleko ke sa tsebe gore ke entseng. Ke kopa meleko eo lena beng ba yona le jare ka gore bana ba ga ke a ke tlisetsa bona, ke tliseditse ke lena ba fase. So ithute go ba strong, o ipotse gore le bona ka osane mathata o kopana le wona ka bona, le bona ba ile o kopana le wona. Amogela ina masego tshele, ithute ntho eo, ithute gore ntho nngwe le nngwe o shape matsogo, o shapele sedimo sa gago. And then gore ke kgone gore ke berekele family ya ka, ke berekele sedimo sa ka, ke dutse le bona fatshe family ya ka kana le ambona ntho e ke jarileng ha ke a applyela entletse ene ka tsamaya ka ilo sotlega. So ga gane jwale le tlamegile le re ge ke na le mediro ya sedimo le tlele kenye matsogo enthuse ka ro ba bang ba bona mathwasana o tla a sena family tlamegile a direlwe ba tla mo direlang ke bo mang ka rena ke na le matsogo a ithuta ke family ya ka tlamegile itse ba gore jo ke jarileng le bona ba e jarile. Ke leboga.
Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, bana babadimo, boys and girls, Kokwane Dumezulu. I've been your host, Moyo, and thank you so much for tuning in. As I said, I'm going to be hosting a vision boarding session for a private group of individuals. If you would like to join the link of my WhatsApp society, you'll find it here in the comment section. And also, in one of my businesses, this is what I offer for you guys for Valentine's Day. There are a set of 4 magnetic, personalized magnets that you can customize, of course, with pictures of your loved ones and a small message. And that's something that you can obviously keep as memorabilia, and you can celebrate love all through the year. All the details are below in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. Tagozan.